feel like I should sing, but you don't want to hear that. Morning. All right, this is a chamber event. Try it again. Morning. Thank y'all for being with us. Thank you for blessing us with your attendance today. And how about this incredible facility? Y'all like this one? Not bad, right? Before I jump into everything, I do want to thank a few people. I want to start by thanking Neil Pruitt for his leadership this year. Neil truly is the embodiment of the Georgia way, the Atlanta way, corporate citizenship. Neil, thank you for what you've done, not just for this chamber, but for the entire state of Georgia. We're truly a better chamber of commerce in the state because of your service. So thank you, Neil. You can applaud for that. Come on. It's got to be a little give and take this morning. And I couldn't think of anyone I'm more excited to work with than Pedro Cherry. Pedro truly, and his wife Tamika, are truly servant-hearted leaders in this organization, in this entire state, and a little bit into Tennessee too, where we have to share you up there in Chattanooga. But Pedro, thank you for agreeing to serve and to be in this role this year. You're not going to applaud for him either? I feel like you've fallen out of practice with this, but we'll get it right here. I'm the warm-up for the governor, the speaker, and lieutenant governor, so I got to get you going. I do want to thank one special person this morning. For the last 17 years, Kathy Holtzclaw has been my right hand, both at DNR and at the chamber. And a few months ago, she says, "I've had enough of you, and I will retire now." Kathy, thank you for your service. We love you so much. You've meant so much to this state, and particularly to this chamber. Thank you. I'm so going to miss you. Kathy was very clear. She said, "Don't say anything about my retirement." So, I did it. And by the way, sitting next to her is my beautiful wife, Tiffany. Thank you for being with us today. There you go. They applaud for you. You know, Tiffany is here today to cheer me on, but also to cheer our son. Our son Christian was the drum major for the McIntosh Marching Band. And yes, we're parents all at heart, right? Oh, they're still here. Love you, son. You know, when I see Christian and his bandmates, I'm reminded, I think I'm re-energized of why I do this job and why this chamber exists. 8 years ago, you guys told us very clearly that you wanted this chamber to become a future-focused thought leader that's looking long into the future to make sure we've got workforce of the future, that he and his peers are trained, that we have great jobs for your kids. And to the members of the General Assembly, the work that you do this week and the next 37 days, it reverberates through the next 20 years in this state. And so listening to you, I'm reminded of why we do our work. We also listened to you a couple of years ago when you said in order for us to do a better job as businesses in Georgia and for members of the General Assembly, you wanted better data to understand what was happening in the economy. And so today I'm happy to release the second edition of our Economic Red Book. I think you got that up there. You can take a QR code of this now, and you'll have it digitally, but I beg you to pick up a hard copy on your way out so we don't have to haul them back to the office. Please. The staff does not want to haul them back to the office. Listen, every statistic you could possibly imagine is in this Red Book comparing us to other states, economic data, demographics, education data, so that you understand what's happening and where we're going in order to make the best decisions. Now, one of the statistics that we mention in this book, but I think it's one of the drivers for us, is this one. The fact that for the 10th year in a row, Georgia's been named the best place to do business. Have you heard this? Did you know that this has happened? Yeah. I want to thank this morning Governor Kemp, Pat Wilson, the Department of Economic Development, all of our local chambers and development authorities, the Speaker, the Lieutenant Governor, and all the members of the General Assembly. Because when you listen to the business community and respond, as you've done for the last 10 years, we are a better state, we employ better, we provide better opportunities, and we become the best place to do business. So, Governor, thank you for your leadership on that. Everything that we do for the last 13 years at least has been based around making us a better place to do business, a better place to live, work, play, and pray. To that end, we've been focused on 3 critical pillars, and those pillars will guide us as we move into this legislative session. I want to share with you the things that the business community wants to focus on and wants to work with you on over the coming, I wanted to say 40 days, but thank goodness we're at 37, right? Okay. Here's the first thing. we need to make sure that we're building out the infrastructure of the future. Why? Well, because of my son, his peers, and because of all of your kids. In the next 6 years, Georgia will add 750,000 new residents to our state. We'll also add 1 million new cars to the road, many of them electric. You can pick up a couple before you leave today. We'll also, according to our friends Griff and the Georgia ports, we're going to increase Georgia's freight tonnage by 91% in the coming 25 years. Now, in order to move all that around and to move us safely around, the Georgia DOT tells us that we're going to need to invest about $84 billion in the next 20 years. We got to start making that investment now to make sure that we can move goods and products and our families around safely in the future. Now, here's the good news. That's a big number. I know it's scary. But 70% of Georgians are ready to make that investment and to address those needs. Georgians are also very focused on having the energy infrastructure of the future. We're thankful for our pals finishing Unit 3. We got to finish Unit 4 at Plant Vogtle. We've got to build out more natural gas distribution. We've got to have more solar in Georgia. And we're doing all of that today to have a reliable, safe, and affordable energy sector. And I want to personally thank all of our utility partners that are here today and members of the public service for finishing Unit 3 and making sure that we don't end up like Texas and California, worried if the lights are going to come on tomorrow. So thank all of you for that investment. Our second pillar, this one might sound familiar, is to make sure we remain competitive. We recently polled Georgians, and they told us that their number one issue was the economy and inflation. Now, there's not a lot we can do about inflation. The governor has done as much as anybody can possibly do. This is more of a Washington problem, but we can still do a lot on the economy. So what do we do? What do we do this session? Well, first of all, Governor, we support your efforts to lower the state income tax, and I know that the Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor and all the members of the General Assembly are laser focused on that. I also want to thank Chairman Blackman and Chairman Huffstetler for their work this year looking at our economic development toolbox to make sure our incentives are competitive, transparent, and accountable. We appreciate that, particularly for our rural communities that are still working extra hard on recruiting companies. I just saw an article out of North Carolina this last week that said they were readying a new slate of incentives and policies in North Carolina so they can compete with Georgia. There's always somebody in our rearview mirror, and we always have to be focused on that competitiveness. Another thing that we look forward to working, Lieutenant Governor, I know you're probably going to talk about it later, but your red tape rollback, we're there with you. Anything we can do to make Georgia better for small business, we appreciate your leadership on that. But one of the most important issues this session, I feel like every year, is dealing with lawsuit abuse in this state. Now, despite what the AJC might have said this morning, make no mistake, the business community is unified on addressing this issue. All right? Make no mistake about that. In fact, 64% of Georgians in our last poll said that we need to address this issue. What does it look like? Well, you can ask Commissioner John King or Commissioner Tyler Harper. Every hospital, every farmer, every small business in Georgia is worried about being harassed with frivolous lawsuits, being targeted. And so we believe that our judicial system in Georgia should be about justice, not jackpots. Make no mistake about it, we want to support premises liability. It's a sin that two criminals can come onto your property, hurt one another, and then sue you for damages. And members of the General Assembly, we can do something about that. You've got a bill ready to go. We can also help lower insurance rates in Georgia and bring back more carriers by passing something called direct action, which I'll let you talk to the lawyers about that later. But make no mistake, we are focused and we will be there to work with you on anything to alleviate and to have a fair and balanced judiciary. The third area, our third pillar, which Pedro's already talked about, is workforce development. Now, this is the number one top issue for every Georgia business as we travel the state and survey folks. Let me share with you a couple of statistics to paint the picture here. For every 3 job opens in Georgia, there's one person right now actively looking for that job. This year, we expect 100,000 more jobs to be created in Georgia. Now, some folks say, well, wait a minute, not enough people are out there to fill those jobs. That's completely wrong. Georgia's labor participation rate has fallen to 62%, below the national average. Today, as we sit here, there are 3.2 million able-bodied working-age Georgians that could be working that aren't working. We've also got right now only 40% of our high school graduates will ever have worked a day in their life. We've got to make sure they've got the work ethic and the skills to be successful when they get to college, technical college, and back into your workforce. So I want to thank Chancellor Perdue, Commissioner Dozier. I want to thank Superintendent Woods and Bruce Thompson, our Labor Commissioner, for working with us to address skill preparedness and this labor shortage. This session, a couple of things that we can do. One is to pass occupational licensure reform. Georgia licensed more occupations than any other state in the country. Some of those we absolutely need. Secretary of State Raffensperger, we look forward to working with you to streamline that system, and I know the Senate's working at removing barriers in order to get folks back to work. We've also, and Pedro mentioned this, it's time to do something about workforce housing. We now have the lowest housing ownership rate than we've had in a generation at 64%, and the research says that my son's peers and your kids and grandkids will be 45 years old before they can afford their first home. 45. That ought to get a collective groan from everybody in the audience. We can do better than that. And so I want to thank the partners that have been working with us to address this issue. I know the governor's done a lot of work on it, but we think this is the session to make a difference and to help these kids have the American dream that we were all able to have. I also believe, and our chamber believes, that the work that we do in public safety matters for workforce development. If your employees don't feel safe going to work, you're not getting the most out of them. And so I want to thank Attorney General Chris Carr for his work to deal with organized retail crime, human trafficking, as well as every other gang. Now you can applaud, that's good, have it along. And I want to thank the mayor for his work to make Atlanta a safer place to live, work, play, and pray. Whew, we got a lot to do this session. I didn't even get into healthcare. That's a whole other conversation we can have. We're going to be for a lot of stuff, just like we're for your business. But make very, very sure that this chamber will also defend free enterprise every single day at the Capitol and in Washington. Anything that tries to hurt jobs or hurt your small business, we will be there on your behalf. This chamber exists for you, for your business, for your kids, for my son and his peers. And that's what we're going to wake up every day trying to be a better servant leader to bless this state. Thank you for what you do for us and allowing us to represent you. And I'm going to get it out of the way to get to the big guns. But again, I was just the warm-up act for you. Thank you so much. God bless Georgia.